Good morning, scholars. Today we're going to be doing our Friday, April 24th lesson. It is our day 5 lesson of the packet. So you will need from your Kinder Reading Comp packet. Remember, we're in Unit 8 now. The worksheet that looks like this, which says day 5 on it. Again, this is how it looks. There's 2 boxes on the top, 1 box on the bottom. This is the graphic organizer we will be using. Scholars, a graphic organizer is just a kind of a sheet of paper that lets us organize our thoughts and answer questions. Earlier in the week, we used a graphic organizer that we talked about beginning, middle, and end, and it looked like that. Today, we're going to be doing something new. I hope you're so excited for it. We're still going to be doing our first grade fiction elements, but today, instead of beginning, middle, and end, we're going to be talking about the problem or conflict in a story and how the problem is resolved, which is the solution. So again, today we're going to be talking about the conflict and the solution of a fiction story. Before we jump in, let's go ahead and break these parts down. First, we're going to talk about the problem of the story, which on our graphic organizer, we see that there is a sad face because the problem or the conflict of the story is the problem. It's the bad thing or sad thing that happens that we do not like. So let's talk about that real quick. Ready? The conflict is the problem in the story. The conflict is the problem in the story. We don't like the problem in the story. The conflict is a sad or bad thing. On our anchor chart up there in the corner, you can see that we have drawn a sad face because the conflict is the problem in the story. Okay? Now, although the conflict might be the problem or sad thing in the story, there is a solution. And a solution is how the problem gets fixed. One more time, the solution is how the problem gets fixed. And that's something that makes us happy. So on our graphic organizer, we have a happy face, as well as on our anchor chart over there, we see the solution. Oh, it's kind of not wanting to show you because the sun right now, sorry. Let me see if I can fix that for you. Ooh, that is just super bright. I don't know how to fix that. Give me 1 second. Let me close the blinds and maybe that'll help out a little bit more. Sorry, guys. Technical difficulties, which if you are in my class, you know Ms. T struggles with, but we always fix it. All right, yeah, we fixed it a little bit. So we see here the conflict is the problem in the story. It's the sad thing that happens, sad or bad thing, but the solution is how the problem gets fixed. We have a happy face, okay? When we are talking about the conflict or problem in the story and the solution, how it gets fixed, we do want to think about the behavior that may have caused that. So what was the reason? What happened that caused that problem to be in the story or to be apparent, something that happened? Okay, so now that we've talked about the conflict and we know that that's the problem or the bad, sad thing that happened in the story, and we've talked about the solution and we know that that's the good thing that's happened to resolve the conflict, we're going to go ahead and jump in. As I mentioned, you will need this graphic organizer with day 5 on it, and you will need a pencil. The only thing I need you to do at the moment is to write your name, and then we are going to put our papers away until it's time to write, okay? All right, now that you have your name on your paper, we are going to use the book Ruby the Copycat. And we are going to use this book today to see if we can identify what the problem or conflict of the story is and how it gets solved. What is the solution? All right. Let's go ahead and read to see if we can find a conflict or problem in the story. Monday was Ruby's first day in Miss Hart's class. Class, this is Ruby, announced Miss Hart. Ruby, you may use the empty desk behind Angela. Angela is the girl with the pretty red bow in her hair. Angela smiled at Ruby. Ruby smiled at Angela's bow and tiptoed to her seat. I hope everyone had a pleasant weekend, said Miss Hart. Does anyone have anything to share? I was the flower girl at my sister's wedding, said Angela. That's exciting, said Miss Hart. Ruby raised her hand halfway. I was the flower girl at my sister's wedding, too. What a coincidence, said Miss Hart. Angela turned and smiled at Ruby. Ruby smiled at the top of Angela's head. Class, please take out your reading books, said Miss Hart. At lunchtime, Ruby hopped all the way home on one foot. When Ruby came back to school, she was wearing a red bow in her hair. She slid into her seat behind Angela. I like your bow, whispered Angela. I like yours too, whispered Ruby. Class, please take out your math books, said Miss Hart. On Tuesday morning, Angela wore a sweater with daisies on it. At lunchtime, Ruby hopped home sideways. When Ruby came back to school after lunch, she was wearing a sweater with daisies on it. I like your sweater, whispered Angela. I like yours too, whispered Ruby. On Wednesday, Angela wore a hand-painted t-shirt with matching sneakers. After lunch, Ruby hopped back to school wearing a hand-painted t-shirt with matching sneakers. Why are you sitting like that? Whispered Angela. Wet paint, said Ruby. On Thursday morning, during sharing time, Angela modeled the flower girl dress she wore at her sister's wedding. Ruby modeled her flower girl dress too, right after lunch. Angela didn't whisper anything. By coincidence, on Friday morning, both girls wore red and lavender striped dresses. At lunchtime, Angela raced home. When Angela came back to school, she was wearing black. Scholars, we just read the beginning of the story and there was a conflict or problem in it. Can you think for a minute what the problem might be in the story so far and tell somebody next to you? What do you think the problem is? You can use the sentence, I think the conflict in the story is, Go ahead and see if you want to take it, or try and tell somebody next to you and see if you can get it right. Go ahead. All right, come back to Miss T. So, scholars, if you said that the problem or conflict in the story is that Ruby is copying Angela and Angela does not like it, you're absolutely right. All week, Ruby has been copying Angela. And now by the end of the week, she's not even whispering to Ruby. And here she went and put on a black dress and she does not look happy. She looks very upset. She does not like it. Time to go ahead and use our graphic organizer. In the top box, the problem of the story, we are going to write Ruby is copying Angela and Angela does not like it. Okay, before I show you my paper, you have a couple of options. If you want to challenge yourself to write it your own and listen to the words that you hear, go ahead and do that now before you see my paper. If you can't get it all though, that is completely fine. You can definitely use the video, which I'll show you in a minute, to help and support you. But again, if you would like to challenge yourself to see if you can write the words, Ruby is copying Angela and Angela does not like it on your own, go ahead and try now. Otherwise, parents, I will flip over my camera. I will show you my paper happily. Again, you may pause the video right now so that your scholar has enough time to write the problem on their paper. So you see right there in the top box, it says problem of the story. Miss T has written Ruby is copying Angela and Angela does not like it. Go ahead and take the time to write that on your paper now. Oops. Sorry, I didn't realize the video was moving. Okay, we're gonna flip the camera back around and we are going to continue reading the story. This time I'm going to read the story the whole way through, and we're gonna see if we can find the solution, how the problem gets fixed, okay? On Friday afternoon, Miss Hart asked everyone to write a short poem. Who would like to read theirs first? Asked Miss Hart. Angela raised her hand. She stood by her desk and read, I had a cat I could not see because it stayed in back of me. It was a very loyal pet. It's sad we never really met. That was very good, said Miss Hart. Now who's next? Miss Hart looked around the room. Ruby? Ruby stood up and recited slowly. I had a nice pet who I never met because it always stayed behind me, and I'm sure it was a cat, too. Ruby smiled at the back of Angela's head. Someone whispered. Ruby sat down. What a coincidence, murmured Miss Hart, the teacher. Scholars, look at those characters' faces. They kind of look like they're still not happy. So do we think that the problem's gotten fixed yet? Say no way. Our characters are still not looking very happy, so they probably have not solved the problem. Angela scribbled something on a piece of paper. She passed it to Ruby. The note said, You copied me. I'm telling Miss Hart. P.S. I hate your hair that way. Ruby buried her chin in the collar of her blouse. A big tear rolled down her nose and plopped onto the note. When the bell rang, Miss Hart sent everyone home, except for Ruby. Miss Hart closed the door Miss Hart closed the door of the schoolroom and sat on the edge of Ruby's desk. Ruby, dear, she said gently, you don't need to copy everything Angela does. You can be anything you want to be, but be Ruby first. I like Ruby. Miss Hart smiled at Ruby. Ruby smiled at Miss Hart's beautiful polished fingernails. Have a nice weekend, said Miss Hart. Have a nice weekend, said Ruby. On Monday morning, Miss Hart said, I hope everyone had a pleasant weekend. I did. I went to the opera. Miss Hart looked around the room. Does anyone have something to share? Ruby waved her hand, and glued to every finger was a pink plastic fingernail. I went to the opera too, said Ruby. She did not, whispered Angela. Miss Hart folded her hands and looked very serious. Ruby, dear, said Miss Hart, did you do anything else this weekend? Ruby peeled off her fingernail. I hopped, said Ruby. The class giggled. Ruby's ears turned red. But I did. I hopped around the picnic table 10 times. Ruby looked around the room. Watch. Ruby sprang from her desk. She hopped forward. She hopped backward. She hopped sideways with both eyes shut. The class cheered and clapped their hands to the beat of Ruby's feet. Ruby was the best hopper they'd ever seen. Miss Hart turned on the tape player and said, follow the leader. Do the Ruby hop. So Ruby led the class around the room while everyone copied her. At noon, Ruby and Angela hopped home for lunch. The end. So scholars, we can go back to this page where Ruby is hopping around the room and everybody looks happy. I can see that some kind of solution or there's some kind of way that the problem got fixed. There's a solution in this story because everyone looks happy and they're doing something different. Go ahead and think about what changed that made everybody happy. What did Ruby do that made everybody happy? So here she came back from the weekend. She was copying her teacher. Her teacher asked her if she did anything else, and Ruby told what she did. Go ahead and tell somebody next to you, I think the solution is, and tell them how you think the problem got fixed. Remember, the problem was Ruby was copying Angela and Angela didn't like it. So how do you think they solved the problem? All right, come back to Miss T. If you said that the problem got fixed by Ruby's not copying anybody or copying other kids in her class, you're absolutely right. The problem was that Ruby was copying people, and they didn't like it. It kind of started to bother them. She was copying Angela, then she started copying the teacher. But once Ruby stopped copying other people and showed what she had done, everybody was happy. The problem was fixed. So on our paper, on our graphic organizer, we are going to write that Ruby, stopped copying other people. That's how the problem got fixed. Ruby stopped copying other people. Again, just like when you wrote the problem of the story, if you'd like to try it on your own and see if you can write that down, go ahead and do so right now. Remember, you're writing Ruby stopped copying other people. So 5 words. If you do not want to try that chance on your own, I'm going to turn my camera over. Parents, again, you can pause the video so that your child has enough time to write it in their books or on their worksheet. And there we go. Oh, sorry, camera got changed. So under the solution, we're going to write Ruby stopped copying other people. That's how the problem got fixed. Okay, we're gonna come back to the group. Now, we know that Ruby stopped copying other people, but why do you think she stopped copying other people? What do you think made her realize that she didn't need to copy other people? At the end of the book, she's showing people that they're hopping, and everybody's smiling. They really like it, even to the point that her teacher puts on music and tells everybody to follow her or copy her. So I think Ruby starts to change and no longer copy because, go ahead and tell somebody next to you, why do you think Ruby changed and stopped copying other people? Go ahead. Okay, come back to Miss T. So Ruby kind of realizes that she has her own talents, that she can do things just as good and people like it. So the reason why Ruby stops copying people is because she realizes she's good at something and now people wanted to be like her. So on the bottom of our paper, we're going to write Ruby stopped copying when she realized she had talents of her own. I'm going to go ahead and flip my page over because that is a lot of writing for you to do on your own. Again, you're more than welcome to try it, but that is a lot of writing, scholars. So parents, feel free to pause the video and allow your child to, allow your child to go ahead and copy my paper. And I'm gonna turn the screen, sorry, but I'm realizing it's not going to get the whole screen if I don't turn it, so I apologize. I hope that you're all still able to see that okay. If not, I can go back that way, but again, it's kind of really hard to see given the way that the paper is shaped. A few more seconds. Okay. We're going to come back together. I hope that you've really enjoyed today and talking about problem and solution. Scholars, you can continue this by looking for any kind of problem and solution in a TV show, a movie, or a book that you're reading, anything that you are doing today. See if you hear of a problem, of something that is bad or sad that happened. Remember, the conflict is the problem in the story. It's a sad thing. It's a sad thing. Okay? So think if you can hear a problem. And then try to think of the solution, how they fix it. So the solution is how the problem gets fixed. Or maybe you have a problem in your home, like your mom or dad has lost their keys, and you can help be the solution by finding their keys for them. All right, go ahead and keep working on solution and conflict, which is the problem and solution. And I will see you guys again soon. I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.